What's the word, y'all? Who is every team's biggest X factor for the 2024-2025 season? Let's talk about it. Shout out to BR. You got Jonathan Kuminga as the cover athlete of this article, which makes sense to me because he is a huge X factor for the Golden State Warriors. But this does specifically say for the 2024-2025 season and not just overall for the future of certain organizations. So let's hop into it. I'll tell you what I agree and disagree with. Starting off with the Atlanta Hawks, I think this is pretty fair. If the Atlanta Hawks want any chance to do anything really exciting this season, and Lord knows that don't mean winning the championship, maybe that means making a playoff appearance, going to the second round, whatever. You need Jalen Johnson to take another step. He's already really a high-quality NBA player after last season, where if he was healthy, he would have been in a real run-in for most improved player. If he takes an all-star jump next season, then that's huge for them. And with the other young pieces around them, it means that maybe Atlanta got a little young core going on. So I can agree with this. I think, like, for the overall, like, future of the Atlanta Hawks, Zach is like the real X factor because he determines what happens with this team's future for the next 5 years or so. But if we're talking specifically for this one season, 100% agree with Jalen Johnson. Then we get a Xavier Tillman, which makes sense. I thought that they were going to cop out and say like Derek White or Drew Holiday. Both of those dudes shot nearly 40%. I think Drew Holiday was 40-something percent. Derek White was 39%. Their X factor is, can they still shoot like that with their high-level defense? I feel like that's a cop-out answer. Xavier Tillman makes a lot of sense because you're going to miss Porzingis for the first part of the season. Al Horford is almost 40 years old. And now you got Luke Cornett and Xavier Tillman. And Tillman showed us in that one playoff game that he can hoop. And he told us that when he was at Memphis as well. So I understand this. I hate that the Celtics have all the retired jerseys, so people have to wear numbers like 26. You just have to if you get traded to the Celtics late. Next, we get the Brooklyn Nets, and I have no idea. My whole thing about the Brooklyn Nets this season is like, can they see between Noah Clowney, who is it, Jalen Wilson? Who else is on this team? Dariq Whitehead or, I don't know, Trent Watford. Can one of those younger dudes just blossom, and maybe it's Noah Clowney? I have no idea. Like, this is a season where you're being bad for Cooper Flagg. That's what's going on. Then we get Trey Mann. I don't know if it's because of that one YouTube video the Charlotte Hornets put out this offseason, but I'm kind of behind Charlotte Hornets stock if LaMelo Ball is healthy, which is a big if. I think they have Brandon Miller, who's really good in this rookie season. Trey Mann, I'm a fan of. Miles Bridges is a good basketball player. That's all we'll say about that. And then, like, a healthy Mark Williams is an impactful five-man. And if Trey Mann can be as good as some of us believe he can be at that 2 spot, like, that team could be a playing team, let's say. We be competing for that, if you will, because the Eastern Conference does have teams towards the bottom of that probably will not still be good this season with LaMelo's upside and then Brandon Miller's upside going into year number 2. You know, they have 2 dudes there at least that you can really trust when they're on the court. Got to put that with LaMelo. Next, we get Josh Giddey for the Chicago Bulls. X factors, yes, makes sense. I mean, the dude is going to be a restricted free agent next season. He has to show a lot. He's probably going to get paid a lot of money from the Chicago Bulls. They traded Alex Caruso for him. He's, 22 or whatever years old. We've talked about Josh Giddey a lot since he's been traded, so I don't want to spend too much time here. He's 21 years old. Darius Garland for the Cavs is interesting. I'm not mad at it. I personally think it is Evan Mobley, but maybe I'm thinking bigger picture for the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise. This is the way I think about it when it comes to X Factor being Evan Mobley for me personally. Like, with them, I'm assuming they're saying, like, hey, if they can get Darius Garland to be back to his all-star form, that obviously improves the floor and the ceiling of this team. But I think about Evan Mobley and what he could potentially be, especially if we think about the last couple games of that series versus Boston, and think that I don't know how to word it. If let's say there's 2 options. Option A is Darius Garland jumps back into all-star contention while Evan Mobley stays the same, or option B, Evan Mobley jumps up to all-star contention and Darius Garland stays the same. I think Evan Mobley's progression to an all-star is more important for this team. And again, maybe I'm thinking long-term, but with his defensive versatility and how good of a defender he is, if he can be the offensive weapon to match that, that's just infinitely more valuable for the Cavs than Darius Garland, what he brings. And again, I really like Darius Garland's game, and I'm expecting a bounce-back season, especially under Kenny Atkinson and stuff. But I think that Evan Mobley getting to that point where all of us, well, not all of us, but a lot of us believe he can be, is significantly more important to the Cavs than Darius Garland, especially when you have Donovan Mitchell, who took primary ball handler responsibilities for a lot of the season last year. Like, hypothetically, if the Darius Garland thing doesn't take off, you don't hate it as much as if Evan Mobley doesn't take off when you think about his upside. I don't know if I explained that right, but either way, I'm not mad at the pick. I think that Evan Mobley probably will be higher on my list as far as X factor goes. Yes, Klay Thompson, 100% can agree with this. He's playing with a chip on his shoulder after what happened last season with the Golden State Warriors, how he went out in that play-in game. We talk about X factors, 100% Klay Thompson being able to continue to shoot the way he has throughout his career. If we can somehow get him to be 10% better defensively than was last season, that means a lot to this team. And the Dallas Mavericks haven't had a movement shooter like Klay Thompson ever, because, I mean, there's probably 3 better movement shooters in the history of basketball. And I don't think that it's going to be hard for them to incorporate him in that movement. He's not going to be a corner center, and if he is, fire Jason Kidd, but he's not going to be a corner center like you might think he is because of the way Dallas plays basketball. I think he's going to be malleable. I think Luka has showed that he can be malleable when they signed Kyrie Irving or was traded for Kyrie Irving. Their offense should look differently because Klay Thompson and his threat as a shooter. Imagine the shots that they're going to generate for Klay Thompson this season. Oh, I'm excited for it. Next, we got Christian Brown. With KCP being out, it was between him and Julian Strawther. I'm not mad at this pick whatsoever. They need him to be a high-volume, high-efficiency three-point shooter because they were dead last in three-point attempts last season. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's a numbers game. Once we get to 2024, 2025, it's going to be hard to continue to be they're going to be a good team, obviously, but continue to be contenders when you're losing the math problem. And they need Christian Brown to be one of the solutions to that math problem. Then you got Asar Thompson for the Detroit Pistons. I was curious to see who they would pick here. I've been really diving in this offseason to a lot of X's and O's and rewatching film, and I've been watching a lot of Cade Cunningham because he was one of the players in the association that I respected his game, but I didn't have a strong opinion about either way. So I've been diving into him a lot, and the amount of tough mid-range contested jump shots or tough finishes at the rim he had to settle for last season because the lack of spacing for the team was unheard of. And they went on to sign some people in free agency and trade for some guys that can help that spacing. But Asar Thompson and his overall athletic ability, if he can even get to 2% better three-point shooter, I think that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, if they're going to pick 5th every year in the draft, they need one of those 5th overall picks to blossom, and it's Asar Thompson, who showed us really good flashes last season. 88th percentile or better for his position last season when it comes to block rate, steal rate, and offensive rebounding rate and defensive rebounding rate. He does everything other than score the damn basketball at this point. 18.6% from deep. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Jonathan Kuminga, of course. Yep. Jonathan Kuminga is a really good basketball player. He's probably penciled into the 3rd most impactful player or important player for the Golden State Warriors, only behind Steph Curry and Draymond Green. I don't have any complaints with him being the X factor. I'm trying to think if anybody else even, maybe it is Pods, with him basically being the full-time starting guard alongside Steph Curry this season. But Kuminga blossoming again means a lot for the Warriors. So, yes, that makes sense. Jabari Smith Jr. We did a podcast episode yesterday. We were buying and selling stock and players. He was on my list of buy. I didn't have time to mention him, but Jabari Smith Jr., I'm a huge fan of his game. I just feel like he can play on pretty much any other team and be impactful. And he's going to be going into year number 3 this season. And I'm expecting him to be better on the offense side of the ball. His defense is super good at this point in his career. And I want to see them run a little bit more small ball 5 with him, because when they did run 5 with him, it was so fun to watch. So I can agree with this. Another X factor for the Rockets. Again, they're only talking about the 2024-2025 season, so I agree with that. I think for the long term, the other Thompson twin, Amen Thompson, is a huge X factor for them long term. But for this season, Jabari is up there. 6'11", 4, and he does a lot of different stuff. I kind of forgot he was 6'11", because he doesn't move like 6'11" on the court, you know? And I ain't saying he's silky smooth like Kevin Durant, but he's very smooth. Andrew Nembhard woke a lot of people up this postseason with his play. It's probably him. As far as X factors go, I'm not mad at it. I don't have anything else to say about him. He was phenomenal in the postseason. They need him to continue to be a hard-nosed defender, hit his jump shots, and basically be the secondary brain to the Indiana Pacers offense. And that's kind of the way I see him behind Tyrese Halliburton. Next, we got Chris Dunn for the Clippers. Ooh, I was wondering what the Clippers was going to be. Chris Dunn, huh? Let me read what they saying. This is basically we don't know who the real X Factor is. So Chris Dunn. They're basically saying that Chris Dunn A three-point shot came around late in his career, and because of that, he's got this contract. And if he can continue to shoot that way, he's one of the better backup point guards in basketball. I think I can agree with that. The jump shot means a lot because his defense is going to be elite. Who else would I have in this spot? Because they're only giving us players. They're not giving us things. Because the X factor for the season is Kawhi Leonard's knees and legs. But they're giving us individual players. So I guess Chris Dunn is the right answer. Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent. For the Lakers? Lakers fans, y'all think he's the X factor this year? I don't know, man. Is he the X factor? Oh, that's tough. I mean, maybe my definition of X factor is a little bit different, but I'm also thinking about who else is on this roster and figuring out who I would believe the X factor is. I mean, maybe it's a guy like Max Christie, who they paid that $30-something million contract to. Maybe it's Austin Reeves again after last season. He was basically the X factor. Maybe it's him again. Abe Vincent. Oh man, I don't like that pick, but I don't have a counter, so I guess it's fine. Zach Edey, I can agree with this. I can agree with him being the X factor, with them basically going with their center room not being, because it's like, it's Zach Edey, I guess it's Brandon Clark, I guess it's Jaren Jackson Jr., who's run some five over the last couple seasons. They're basically saying that Zach Edey will be the starting center coming this season. I guess. I mean, there is still a world where Jaren is the 5, and then you have like a Salty Aldama or somebody like that at the 4. But Zach Edey would be the X factor here. I'm actually really excited about this one. I didn't know much about Zach Edey going into it, but after I really dove into it, I like the idea of him being, because I think he comes in immediately as one of the 10 best screeners in basketball, and with Ja Morant getting downhill and his passing, I think Zach Edey's going to be an impactful player right off rip. And he's different than any other 7'5" player in the association ever, because the dude is like a workhorse. Usually you think about those plus 7 foot guys, and I'm talking 7'2", 7'3", and 7'4", and so on. They can only play in spurts. It's like, here's 6 minutes of the 7'2" guy. Here's 3 minutes of the 7'2" guy. Zach Edey basically played every minute of his college career. At least that's what it felt like. So you ain't got to worry about him getting up and down the court and being gassed. It's just not going to happen. So I'm okay with this being the X factor. Marcus Smart is another guy that could be it. Didn't play a ton of last season. And they traded a lot to bring Marcus Smart in, let's be honest. So him, Ja, Bane, and Jaren didn't play a lot last season because, of course, Ja Morant's injury and stuff, and those numbers didn't look incredible, but it was such a small sample size. So I would probably go Marcus Smart as an X factor as well. But Zach Edey, you're going to need a center. Next, Miami Heat, Kel'el Ware. I would probably put Nikola Jovic as more of an X factor for them this season than Kel'el Ware. It's just a lot to put on a rookie. He looked really, really good in most of his games in Summer League. I don't know how much of that translates to the NBA regular season. I hope it does, because, he was phenomenal, and he stretched the floor a little bit, at least felt that confidence to stretch the floor. But I'm thinking about Nikola Jovic or Jaime Jaquez, whoever's going to be starting at that 4 spot alongside Bam, is super important for what this team could potentially be. You could even argue, like, Terry Rozier could be the X factor. There's a lot of dudes that you kind of can look at and squint and say it's the X factor for the Miami Heat. Kel'el Ware, again, I think he could be a long-term X factor, because I do believe, after what I saw in the Olympics, that Bam can run some 4, and we've never seen it as far as him being a Miami Heat player, and Kel'el Ware can kind of make that happen. I don't know how many minutes we'll see of Kel'el Ware and Bam together in his rookie season, but maybe he's that nice where it's going to happen often. That's why I kind of feel like Nikola Jovic makes more sense as the X factor for me. Gary Trent Jr. for the Bucks. Shooters. I can agree with this. If he can his high volume 3-point shooting, he's going to get a lot of opportunity. Once upon a time, early in his career when he was in Portland, he was looked at as one of these menacing type of defenders because he's always got his hands in the passing lane and stuff like that. That's kind of died down throughout the course of his career. So if he could come into Milwaukee that desperately needs perimeter defense and try to lock down. You remember when Malik Beasley was trying to lock down? If he can try to lock down, cause some turnovers, and hit his 3-point shot, I already agree that it's a good pickup regardless, but it makes it a great pickup if he could get back to some of those earlier Portland days. Rob Dillingham. Man, that's a lot of pressure on these rookies, man. It's a lot. I think that's the 3rd rookie in 18 slides we've seen so far. But as I think about it, can you call an all-star, a former All-NBA player, an X factor? Like, could Karl-Anthony Towns be the X factor for the Timberwolves, or is he just too good to be? Because I think X factor can be looked at with a negative connotation when it probably shouldn't be. I just think it's a lot of pressure. But yeah, yes. They're looking for him to come into the team and impact the game immediately. He's going to be learning under Mike Conley, but it's not like learning as the 12th man. It's learning as the 7th man, learning as the 8th man. So I guess I can see where it's coming from, but I don't want to put that much pressure on any of these younger, whether it be Zach Edey, Kel'el Ware, or Rob Dillingham. especially when we consider people looked at this class as being a weak draft class, and now these dudes are the X factor for contenders. That's a lot. That's a lot. Anyway, Jordan Hawkins, interesting. They have so many guys over there in New Orleans where, like, when they had all the injuries last year, Jordan Hawkins stepped into the lineup and gave us a good game here or there. But eventually, once they started to get healthier, Jose Alvarado comes back from his injury, so on and so forth. Jordan Hawkins fell out of rotation completely, and they've kind of only done additions to the team. Like, yes, Dyson Daniels is gone, Larry Nance is gone. You're not competing with Larry Nance if you're Jordan Hawkins. Him being an X factor's interesting. I think the X factor is Trey Murphy III, honestly. Or maybe that's the easy answer, but I think it's Trey Murphy III. Mitchell Robinson, yeah. I mean, they still have him, basically Preston Chewy, who re-signed a few weeks back, as that center position. They need Mitch Rob to be healthy. After losing Isaiah Hartenstein, they need him to have a really healthy season. So I can agree with him being the X factor. You know the wings are solid. The guard play is really good, obviously. It's like, what does our centers look like compared to these other teams? And Mitchell Robinson being healthy is super, super important. 100% agree with him. Jalen Williams is next for the OKC Thunder. I guess the X factor is probably like, can he replicate his jump shooting season for last year? An outrageous 54, 42, 81 shooting splits. Jeez. I cannot believe how many jump shots and a lot of pull-up jump shots he hit last season. Who else could be an X factor for the OKC Thunder? You're talking about true X factors, a guy like Alex Caruso. That's why you trade for him, to be an X factor, potentially be in the closing lineup, guard up, and hit 40% from three. And this is like an all-star X factor. Can he be the all-star that some of us can project him to be? I like Alex Caruso as like an X factor, but I'm biased. Jonathan Isaac. Yeah, I would say him or Jalen Suggs. Both of these dudes are all-world defenders, but the reason I would probably have Jalen Suggs a little bit higher because they're kind of relying on Jalen Suggs to go back to being a point guard, and we haven't really seen him play full-time point guard in a few seasons now. I think he's capable of it. Shout out to Jalen Suggs, but I think him blossoming into, the higher-level playmaker and limiting those turnovers is hugely important for this team that brings in KCP because Franz, Paolo, those guys are going to bring it. It's like, can we get Jalen Suggs to continue to shoot the percentage he shot last season? I think it was like 36, 37%. Can we continue that? And then also, can we get him to be the point guard? Again, you have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, who's going to take a bulk of these playmaking opportunities. But I still do believe that you need a really high-level playmaker on really good teams. And Jalen Suggs is going to have to show that he can be that. Sorry, Jalen Suggs shot 39.7% from three last season. I disrespected him by saying 36. I'm sorry. That extra 3% matters, bro. It really does. Philadelphia 76ers, Caleb Martin, 100%. I mean, until they brought in Yabusele yesterday or 2 days ago, he was basically the only, four-man on the roster. He's a short four-man. So I can agree with this. If we could get him to play like he plays against Boston every game, then hell, NBA Finals, here they come. But I can agree with him being the X factor. Him and / Gershon Yabusele, just because that position is a position of need. Gershon, if he can shoot the way he has when he played for Real Madrid, then what a pickup for $2 million. Then we have Royce O'Neal for the Phoenix Suns. Paid him a lot of money. The Royce O'Neal contract makes sense to me. Is he more of an X factor than a Tyus Jones? I would maybe say Tyus Jones. They've been waiting for a point guard over there. They asked for a point. They wanted a point guard last season, couldn't get it, and now Tyus Jones, one of the better assist-to-turnover ratio guys in the history of basketball. I would have him a little bit higher than Royce O'Neal because they've just been lacking that type of player. But I'm not mad at Royce O'Neal either. Scoot Henderson, yeah. Scoot Henderson ended the season pretty solidly. I'm still pretty mad that he didn't play Summer League because what the hell are we doing? Even Brandon Miller played some Summer League, at least if it was a game. I think last year Jabari Smith Jr. played one game, hit a game winner, and they shut him down. Just give us one game of Summer League. I was so confused why he didn't play. Regardless, he's the X factor for next season. Again, this is not a season where the Trailblazers are playing for anything. It's more like development and lottery odds. But yeah, we want to see those flashes that we saw in the last 10 or so games for Scoot Henderson become a reality. I think the last game of his season, he had 30-something. And that's always if you're a Trailblazer fan, you this waiting for next October so you can see, can he use that momentum? I also would love to see him elevate his on-court drip, man. God, for somebody that has as much potential as he has, we need him to do something, bro. I hate the high socks. I hate it. That's just me. Keon Ellis. Keon Ellis is a team that through the second half of the season to the end, surprised a lot of us and were a really good defensive team. Keon Ellis was a dog, a hound as a primary defender, and I love that about him. And with the team getting slightly less defensive oriented with DeMar DeRozan, and the difference between Harrison Barnes last season, DeMar DeRozan last season defensively, I would say Harrison Barnes was probably better, but it's not like 100% better. But I also did watch DeMar DeRozan the last couple seasons. It's not great. So the point of attack buzzword is really important for the Sacramento Kings, and Keon Ellis showed that he could do that, and he had really, really good shooting games. And if he could continue to do that, they got their two-man. Because you can use Kevin Huerter off the bench. Even if Kevin Huerter bounced back, I like Keon Ellis over him for the defensive aspect, especially if he's going to shoot this many. I don't know if that's realistic to see him do this again. But again, I'm excited for Kings ball. Then we got Jeremy Sohan for the Spurs. Yeah, I don't have an argument against this at all. Could we see him blossom that three-point shot a little bit more? They had him as a primary facilitator a lot of last season. Could he use that and now learned under Chris Paul to get better at that aspect to round out his game? We know defensively he's going to give it. He's going to talk some trash on Twitter, specifically the Lakers fans. I'm not mad at this pick whatsoever. Then we have Grady for the Raptors. For next season X Factors, you know what? Because I'm pretty confident in what we're getting from RJ Barrett next season. I'm pretty confident in what we're getting for Emmanuel Quickley. I'm on record saying that I feel like one of those two guys are going to win Most Improved Player. I just ain't decided which one is going to be just yet. So if I'm feeling that good about those two, it's like, yeah, can our last year lottery pick, the 20-year-old guy from Kansas, can he start hitting those three-point shots the way we think he can? Can he add that spacing under Darko Rajakovic? Because his sets, whether he's stolen from the New York Knicks or not, it's not really relevant. His sets and his fluid offense made me smile last season. He didn't really have the weapons to make that fluid offense be successful because he didn't have the shooters last year. But with Quickley and Grady, if he's going to be the shooter that he could be, RJ Barrett being the shooter that he was second half of the season, and with the Olympic team and everything, that shooting, that spacing that can be provided for him if Kelly Olynyk is there. Like, I kind of like a lot of the stuff I saw from the Raptors if they can put it together. Taylor Hendricks, I'm so happy that well, actually, I can't really say that with all confidence that Taylor Hendricks is going to be like real-time rotation, but I'm praying, because he was one of my favorite prospects in that draft, last year's draft. So the fact that he saw a little bit of time last season made me happy, and I'm hoping that they're giving him way more time coming this year, because I thought that he was really, really good in college. And we saw, again, just like a lot of these young players, flashes of it in their rookie seasons, but I want to see him do it more. Keontae George finding some consistency with his offensive scoring would be an X factor as well for next season. But again, specifically talk about next season, it's not a team that's playing for much other than Cooper Flag. And then lastly, Bilal Coulibaly is the last dude for the Wizards. Another flashes guy. A lot of these picks were sophomore year dudes. Can they do it again? Can they get better? But yeah, Bilal's going to have even more opportunity now that Deni Avdija is gone and his team has got a little bit younger with their moves and brought in 3 young rookies. He's got to be one of the vets in year number 2. Yep. I'm not mad at this article whatsoever. Again, we're only talking X factors in this, up to personal interpretation. I'm not mad at it. Shout out to Bleach Report. And who was this? Was this Grant Hughes? And shout out to Grant Hughes, because I agree with like 85 to 90% of those things. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll see y'all tomorrow.